Blog Talk Radio.
Rockin' Jerry Lee. We got Judy and Maria way ahead of time.
Yeah, and we're on the air. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gypsy Poet Radio here on blogtalkradio.com/Gypsy Poet. I am the Gypsy Poet, Sophia E. DeGanis, but my friends can call me Gypsy Poet or Gypsy or Soph, however they want to call me. I am continuing my series with the lovely and wonderful and gracious Girl George, everybody. Girl George, can you say that? Girl George. She is phenomenal. She is gracious. She is funny, and she is just full of glitter, this woman. She, to me, represents what the entertainment industry is all about. Like I said before, she's amazing. Anyway, this afternoon, thanks to Girl George, we've got one of the outlaws of country music. Wow. Zack Van Arsdale. Who or what can get better than this? Wow. Okay, Girl George, my lady, are you there? My co-host, my wing gal, my everything, my mojo.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Wonderful. Okay, and let's go ahead and ring in the wonderful and talented and the outlaw himself, Zack Van Arsdale. Are you there? Hello.
Yeah, hi, Sophia E. Gypsy.
Hey, how are you?
And a big howdy to Girl George. I call her Gigi.
Boy, I haven't heard that kind of accent in a long time. Nashville's got a certain kind of drawl to it.
Well, thank you, ma'am. We appreciate it.
I kind of miss it. How did you get to Nashville in the first place? Well, what year did you go there?
I think it was about 1967 or 68. I was going to college, and I drove down from Michigan State University.
So you're from Michigan?
No, but that's where I was born, but my dad was a military guy like Chris Christopherson.
Oh, you're another of those military brats, huh?
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of them. Jim Morrison's that way,
John
too.
Denver, Emmylou Harris. I used to have a list.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of you guys out there.
Right.
I think Dan Hicks is that way, too. Dan Hicks was a military brat.
Wow.
So you came to Nashville in about 68. That was before I got there. I got there in about 71. And you signed with, what, Bucky? I seen a picture of you and Bucky signing a contract.
Yeah, let me back up 10 minutes. I left Michigan State, drove straight through when you're that young, and got out of the car, reached in the back to get my guitar, stepped on the sidewalk, and Alex Harvey, who wrote Delta Dawn, he said, "You must be a songwriter. Welcome to Nashville." And I got out of the car in front of RCA, and he talked to me for about 5 minutes, and he said, "You need to go up to Buckhorn Music to write with Bucky Wilkin, Little GTO, and then Chris Christopherson was there, but he was still a bartender and a janitor. And Chris Gantry, who wrote Dreams of the Everyday Housewife, and a guy named Dennis Lindy later on who wrote Hunka Hunka Burnin' Love. So that was like a minor miracle to get out of the car and then be told to walk across the street and go up the stairs by Capitol Records and get signed up.
Boy, you're a lucky boy. Mary John Wilkins, Bucky's mother, she was part writer of Long Black Veil, right?
Yes, and one day at a time, you know.
One day at a time, yeah. Oh, the people that wrote Delta Dawn, I met them in North Hollywood at the Palomino. I was doing some country stupid thing that I had written, which I don't write country. I'm rock and roll, you know that. And they said, "Oh, I really like that song," you know. And they said, "We're the ones that wrote Delta Dawn." I said, "Oh, well, that's cool."
Right.
So you met Bucky you met Chris at Buckhorn?
Yeah, it was just a very small office with a little baby piano, you know, just really small, and a desk and a couple chairs, and that was Buckhorn Music. And all the great songs, you know, came in. The first great song would be, I guess, from my recollection, For the Good Times.
Oh, yeah, that's a great song.
But that was about 5 or 6 years later, maybe 4 or 5, somewhere in there.
Well, I didn't meet Chris until about 1970 in San Francisco before I went to Nashville. He came in with Bobby Newirth to the coffee hour and seen us play, and he thought we were really funny. And he said, "Oh, you should go to Nashville." So we did.
Yeah, Baby Blue. He was with Chris out there in L.A. also, yeah.
Yeah, Bobby Newirth. He was like Bobby Dylan's road manager, and I think he road managed for Janice for a while or something.
Right.
Did you ever meet Janice?
No, I didn't. I made some films back in maybe 69 or 70, really, of her just going from the stage to the limo after she was done drinking and singing, you know. And she'd just ran off and pretty fast, you know, got in the limo and took off.
What about the Red Dog Saloon? Did you ever play there in Nashville?
Yeah, that was really green times there, and green beer too, probably. Yeah, but I just remember, and I can't quite remember who played there other than Guy Clark, maybe Girl George.
Yeah, George was Arizona Star. Did you ever come to our carriage house that we used to have?
Yeah, you guys were too amazing for Nashville. You were way ahead of your time.
I did have a question, actually. I wanted to kind of pop in and ask, what made you, or for that matter, what drove you to become a songwriter?
Actually, I was living in Paris, France, in a boarding school between 14 and 18.
Wow.
And so, like, our American music was almost imported, and I just loved the hell out of it. And so I would hear the records, and then there was a piano in the dormitory, so when you're stuck in a dorm, I either did sports at the gym or played the piano, I mean, for hours. And, of course, we had a high school band there. I forgot what we were called, the Pirates or something. The American Pirates.
How did you meet David Allen Coe?
Yeah, I met him when he still had an old hearse, really old. And I heard he was living in it for a while. And I thought he was completely ridiculous and wouldn't get anywhere, and look what happened.
Yeah, we played the Tennessee State Men's Penitentiary with him.
He had an Indian wife at the time, and I'd play him my songs. And we talked about this song called Bobby McGee and how great it was, and that somebody should cut it.
Another question I had is, how did you attain the title of outlaw, of one of the outlaws of country music? Because that has... that's been a question kind of burning in my mind ever since Girl George started telling me about you. And when I hear that, I'm thinking, that to attain that kind of stature, it's really got to be something. Because the two that always seem to come into mind are Johnny Cash and Waylon Jennings are the two that really ring in my mind. So that's one thing I wanted to ask you. How did you attain that particular title or moniker or stature?
Yeah, well, when they were at their best there in about 1975, this is important. They were the first to say to their labels like RCA or wherever Willie was, we're going to make an album on our own. We're not going to do it in your studio with your producer and cut your songs. So they went to Tom Paul Glazer's studio, and they made that first album, which was really Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Tom Paul Glazer, and Jesse Coulter, and they called it The Outlaws. And that's the genesis of that. So I respected, Johnny Cash, too, and Chris Christopherson, who were there a lot. So I went over there to work as a writer in that publishing company, Waylon's company and Tom Paul's company, and got 3 songs recorded by Waylon Jennings and one by Jesse Coulter at that time. So I was kind of in the inner circle. Waylon had an office, Tom Paul had an office, I had an office, and I know you want me to mention this guy, Captain Midnight had a little...
Midnight. Did you know Captain America, too?
No. I don't even know Wonder Woman very well.
All Animals Hate Me, Baby. We recorded that one. He was really quirky.
No.
You don't remember him?
No. I remember. I might later on, you know.
What about Billy Joe Schaefer? I bet you know that one.
Yeah, he came to Chris's company, and they wouldn't. I was sitting there on the couch when he came in with Chris Starfson, and Chris said, "You ought to sign this guy up." They heard his songs, and they said no, so he went to Bobby Bear's company and was a writer there. And but Chris tried to get him a deal with his company, Combine, and Chris Gantry was there too, a great songwriter. So when he went over to Bobby Bear's, I actually played piano on those early demos. You know, in the studio with a small group, I don't know if I can say this. I guess you can. I think we got paid in beer and pills or something like that.
How about Vince Matthews? He was one of my favorite runs back then.
Oh, I'm so glad. He was really close to Cash and Chris Christopherson. And one day I played him one of my songs. He said, "Get in my car. I'm going to take you somewhere." I got in the car. He says, "I'm taking you out to Johnny Cash's house." So we drove out there on the lake and Old Hickory Lake and pulled up, and the guard just waved us in. We got out of the car with the guitar and the songs, went up to the door, knocked on the door. I almost fell off the porch. Something came to the door with a big blonde wig on going, "Come on in," you know. And it was Johnny Cash, and my mind didn't grasp it. Went.
He was a drunk that day?
It was like WTF way back then. And it took me many seconds to figure out who it was. And then he burst out laughing. He says, "This is June Carter's wig here." But it's a cliche, but it did freak me out. I mean, I went, "What?" Because I was already excited, you know.
How did you meet Jerry Lee Lewis? Now, he was my hero when I was like 12 or 13.
Well,
I love Jerry Lee.
That's my best top drawer story there. About December 22nd or 23rd, around 1978, I went to my publisher. I said, "Hey, man, I got a house, a wife, and a kid. Not in that order. It should be a different order. And I don't have any money for Christmas or anything." And the publisher, with the big-hearted publisher, said, "Well, go over across the street and down a little ways there, just about 30 yards from Music Row, and that's Mercury Records. Go in there and give Jerry Lee Lewis your songs. He's recording there." And he dismissed me, and I was too dumb to know better, so I made a tape of Jerry Lee Lewis songs that I thought were good for him. Went over there and went inside, and I was scared to death. And I said to the secretary, Trish or Tish, I said, "I'm a real good friend of Jerry Lee Lewis, and he wanted me to bring this tape over here." And she went, "Bzz," and she buzzed the door, and it went open, and I went, "WTF again." I went, "Oh, my God." And I said, "No, just give it to Jerry Lee Lewis." And she said, "No, you're a good friend of his. Go on down the hall to the right, and Jerry Kennedy's producing it right now." And I could hardly walk down the hall because I was scared of this big legend. And I'm a little over 5'10". By the time I got to the door, I was about 2 feet tall. I was so small inside. I opened the door, a little knocked on it, and they said, "Come in." I opened the door and stuck my hand in with the tape like, here's a tape for Jerry Lee Lewis. And Jerry Kennedy, the big producers, they were cutting them. They said, well, you're a good friend of Jerry Lee's. Come on in here. And he grabs my hand. He pulls me in. He says, we're cutting a song now. And you know, and he was playing Rockin' Jerry Lee or something. And I said, well, I got to go now. I'm in a hurry. You know, here's the tape. Well, you're his good friends. Just stay right there. And I went, really, you know what I said? Oh, no. So they got done cutting a song, it seemed like years, you know. And then he goes, that's a good cut, Jerry. Now come on in, and your friend Zack here's got a great cassette for you. And we're going to play it right now. You need a hit. And I went, oh, shit, you know. I don't even want to look at Jerry Lee Lewis. Is he going to hit me, or is he going to pour his whiskey on me, or kick me out, or humiliate me and say, I don't know this guy. So all the band comes in, they're listening to the playback, and I can see through the glass Jerry Lee Lewis is pouring whiskey into a Coke bottle. Jack Daniels, and he starts coming in the door, and I just went, oh, you know, and I said, oh, no, I'm about crying and, you know, messing my pants. And he comes through the door, takes a swig out of the bottle and says, Zack, it sure is good to see you again, man. And that's the truth.
Did he think he knew you?
Yeah, he says, Zack, it sure is good to see you again. Gives me a big hug, reeking of whiskey, and he says, sure is good to see you, old buddy, old pal. And let's play that tape. I'm getting chills again. Let me just finish in one sentence.
Okay.
And so they played the tape, and it was Honky Tonk Honeymoon. No, and with Jerry Lee piano, I turned it down. Another one, just like Jerry Lee, turned it down. The third song, he turned it down. I said, well, I know he's not going to like the last one because I wrote it for Waylon Jennings. It's got the Waylon beat called I'll Find It Where I Can, you know, boom, boom. He played that, and he said to his producer, Jerry Kennedy, he says, that's my single. I knew my friend would bring me a hit song. So my advice to all you songwriters out there, boldness is genius. And I know that Girl George agrees with that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I have to say that that statement right there, boldness is genius, hits home with me because that's why I started this thing to begin with, and to have that kind of audacity to just get in people's face and say, here, look.
How did you meet Ringo? How did you meet Ringo, Zack?
Yeah, I got a lot of gratitude towards Chris Christopherson. I was out there in L.A. with a whole bunch of people like, you know, Eddie Rabbitt and Billy Swan that had a hit.
Oh, yeah, I know him.
All those people. And Chris told me he was recording at Sunset Sound, Studio B. Drop on by with him and Rita Coolidge. So, and he told Tom Jans that, too. He wrote Love in Arms, you know. So we went there that night. They record real late, you know, probably 10 or 11. And Chris is recording Love in Arms. He was the first one. Lying in Your Loving Arms Again, and in through the door walked Ringo Starr and shook hands with everybody. And, of course, I was taken back by that. And then he said, we're recording in Studio A. If any of you guys got time to come over. So they were recording Tom Jans' song and not mine at that time. So I went over there, and Ramblin' Jack Elliott came to the door, and he said, who are you? And I said, I'm Chris Christopherson. He said, that's a good one. Come on in. So I went in, and Ringo was there, and George Harrison, and some famous producer, and all kinds of people like the band, and David Bromberg, and big bunch of people. And they recorded You're 16, You're Beautiful, and You're
I love that song.
Yeah, it lasted about 3 days, so every night I'd go down there and see what was happening, you know.
What about the Monterey Pop Festival? Did you play it, or did you just be there?
All I know is we went to Monterey and there was a festival. It could have been a folk festival. It could have been a rock festival, but but it wasn't a jazz festival. And a lot of people went out there. When Chris went out there, he was very generous, let us follow him around. And I think it was Eddie Rabbitt and Chris Christopherson, Billy Swanigan, and John Hartford. A lot of Nashville people did that. I'm not sure who got to play. Of course, Chris played. But the night before that, there was a big jam at the Holiday Inn conference room. It was very large on Ocean. It was the Beach Boys, the Animals, Eric Burden, and Country Joe and the Fish, the Mamas and the Papas, Chris's band. And we were doing songs like A Band Searching by the Coasters, or all kinds of old, just rock and roll songs, on the piano and partying around.
Movie too?
Yeah, Chris went down there again, and I should have gone too, but he was down there making the last movie with Dennis Hopper and suggested to Dennis Hopper that they put my song in there, Sympathetic Scarecrow. It's out there on the internet, and so Bucky Wilkin of the GTO sang it in the movie. So that was in the movie during a crucifixion scene. It's actually about Jesus,
Well, that movie's up on YouTube if anyone wants to see it.
Wow, and then he put it in. Then when I stayed at Dennis Hopper's house, Chris said, he's invited you to come stay with him. Go out to New Mexico. So I went out to New Mexico and stayed with Dennis Hopper, and he made a movie, Cinema Verite, and he asked me to sing, sitting right next to him at the dinner table. I sang for my supper, Sympathetic Scarecrow.
How about Elton John? How'd you meet him?
Oh, boy, Chris is getting all the credit like he deserves.
Chris drug you around to everyone, huh?
Yeah, he would always invite me to whatever was happening. I had a good manager, a good agent. He said, tonight's Elton John's birthday party. Come by the Rainbow Room on Sunset Strip.
In Hollywood.
In Hollywood, yeah, Hollywood. And so I went by there, and there was a great big guy at the door, and finally he let me in, and there was just, every booth had stars in it, like the stars from All in the Family, Sally Struthers. The next would be Joni Mitchell, and then Chris. And then there was a big cake with a rocket in it, and that cake was for Elton John, dressed in a white suit. And he had, boy, I wish we had time for this story. He had two beautiful blonde, they look like twins, just perfect human beings, female human beings, perfect. And I said to Chris, I thought you said Jack Nicholson was going to be here. He said, that's him right there in that letter jacket. And there he was with the high school letter jacket on.
How about Bobby Dylan? How'd you meet him?
Okay, I got to change phones. Can you hear me now?
You got to hurry. We got 5 minutes left. Yeah, we're still here.
Anyway, I could say it one sentence. He said, why don't you get those two girls to come back to the Continental Hotel? I said, but they're with Elton John. He said, don't worry about it. When it comes to women, he's not interested. So that's
how about Bobby Dylan? You know Bobby Dylan?
Yeah, I just was allowed to go to his sessions here in Nashville when people would come to Columbia Records. It was right across the street. I mean, literally just 30 yards from my office. So I'd go in, and Bob Dylan would be recording, and or Paul Simon or Johnny Cash or whatever on Columbia, and he allowed me to come to sessions. He asked the engineers about me, and they talked a minute, and then he said, yeah, come on in. So I guess they told him I was cool or something. And
Joan Baez cut some of your songs?
Yeah, I went to, when she was recording, I was out back on the deck back of the recording studio, and I was playing my guitar, and I was playing Feel Like a Lonesome Tumbleweed, which is on YouTube by Joan Baez. And she said, I like that song. Start again and play it. And then she recorded it. And then she took me back to Woodside, California. She adopted me for a while and invited me to be on the Rolling Thunder Tour. But the only place I went was Austin, Texas.
On the Rolling Thunder Tour?
Right, and, you know, at that time it was Harry Dean Stanton, movie stars. And,
yeah, I know.
And Ringo Starr again, and Bob Dylan, of course.
How about
Joan
Marty
Baez
Robbins? How'd you meet
Santana.
him? How'd you meet Marty Robbins?
And you know Kinky Friedman.
Yeah, I know Kinky Friedman. Take your biscuits out of the put your biscuits in the oven and your buns in the bed. That's
right, and he invited all of us out to his house.
Me and Kinky Friedman are born on the same day. You know that we got the same birthday.
I knew he was from Texas, so I slid that in there. Went out to his parents' house, had a barbecue with Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell, Stephen Stills, Joan Baez, and Bob Dylan didn't say a word that day.
How about Marty Robbins? Where'd you meet him?
Yeah, I was dating this girl called Marty Robinson. And I played the song called Lady, I Love You. And she goes, you wrote that? I said, yeah, Lady, I Love You. She said, I want my daddy to cut that for my mama. Can you give me a tape? And I said, oh, yeah, okay. So I gave her a tape, and it's on Marty Robbins' album now. Another legend.
Cool. What about Jack Clement? We got 2 minutes left. How about Jack Clement?
Yeah, I couldn't find a writing deal at one time. I went over there, and he allowed me to write there and help run his publishing company for a couple of years. And, of course, Johnny Cash would stroll in, and those kind of people were always coming in and out. A guy named Marty Stewart, and he liked that, loved that song, Rockin' Jerry Lee.
I love that song. I love that song.
Because Jack helped produce the Whole Lot of Shaking Going On, Jerry Lee's first single.
He was with Sun Records, right?
Yeah, he was the engineer there. Sometimes it would just be him and the artist, you know.
Okay, we got 1 minute left. So anybody that wants to find Zack Van Arsdale on Facebook, and he can put his links to everything else there. It's easier to explain shit.
Yeah, right? I want to thank Girl George and member Arizona Star. Thank you so much, darling. Yeah. And I appreciate the Gypsy Poet. Yeah. You got to listen to Chris Gantry coming up and Kim Morrison.
Yeah, definitely,
darling.
Absolutely. Please check out Zack Van Arsdale here on blogtalkradio.com on this show, plus on Facebook. So whenever you get this, please be sure and check him out. He has great stuff. Go also check out The Song Doctor, awesome website. I think it's www.thesongdoctor.com. Absolutely amazing stuff. Thank you so much, Girl George and Zack Van Arsdale. Oh, what a wonderful show this was. So much history in such a short amount of time. I'm Sophia E. on this. Excuse me?
Thank you, Sophia, the Gypsy Poet.
Yes, thank you. Oh, my goodness. And, of course, Girl George, always the amazing, wonderful, and mesmerizing lady. Thank you so much. This is Sophia. This is the Gypsy Poet saying addio for now.
Ciao.
Well, I heard all about it on the radio. Jerry Lee's coming for a rock and roll show. But when I asked my daddy for the money to go, he said, son, you better start saving up your dough. You get no money from me for rockin' Jerry Lee. I said I'm going even if I gotta steal and rob. But my big brother said get a part-time job. So So I worked after school from 2 until 4, sacking and stocking at the grocery store, to get a ticket to see Rockin' Jerry Lee. We got to the Armory way ahead of time, 'cause Sheila had to be the first one in line. When they opened the doors, I said, come on, let's go. We gotta get good seats down in the front row. And now said the MC, here's Rockin' Jerry Lee. And he said, come along, baby, a whole lot of shaking going on. He was banging the keys, and we were singing along. Like, honey, get your bopping shoes before the jukebox blows a fuse. We were rocking and bopping down in the front row when the killer set fire to the piano. And after the show I took Sheila out back, where we waited in the alley for his autograph. There in a black limousine was rockin' Jerry Lee. But early Monday morning we were back in school. Man, Sheila and I were acting super cool. When we passed it around between science and math, 'cause everyone had to see a signed photograph. The killer banging the keys was rockin' Jerry Lee. And he said, come along, baby, a whole lot of shaking going on. He was banging the keys, and we were singing along. Like a honey, get your bopping shoes before the jukebox blows a fuse. Woo! The killer banging the keys,